it was very interesting to feel actual like genuine insecurities after my accident and just fears of like what men would think of me, because I think I held a lot of identity with guys thinking I was attractive and getting attention, and I really had to like learn again for myself what my identity was, and it showed me how much I care about like what people think of me.
Hi, welcome back to the show. I am so excited. This week we have on Lauren Scruggs Kennedy. Lauren, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I have seriously never, I was just telling you this, but I've never been more excited to have a conversation. I just love what you represent and your intention as well, just in life and family and relationships and health and everything. So I'm really excited. Thanks for having me on.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. You know, the show is called WithIn, obviously, and it's about really unraveling some of these old stories that keep women living in things like perfectionism and shame. And what I love so much about you, and I know I shared a little bit with you offline, is although some people may not know some of the health journey you've been on and the trials and tribulations like you've kind of faced and gone through, you live with such a strong foundation of who you are within that it is just really rare. So I love that. And then on a more personal level, I will just say, you know, you and I had a little bit of our paths crossed about a year and a half ago. And, you know, we were really new to LA and I didn't know many people, and you had no reason to continue to be really kind to me over the past year and a half, but you've been like nothing but sweet to me and sending me like, here's this farmer's market, or do you know about this? And just checking in on me and being really kind, which is again, one of those things like you didn't need to be. And it meant so much to me as, you know, a newbie out here in LA. And I was like, okay, there are kind people in the world for just being nice for no reason other than just to be nice. So just wanted to say, like, I wanted to have you on for other reasons because I think women will find your story so beautiful. But for me personally, I was just like, God, she's just such a kind person. It just makes me happy. So thank you for being so sweet.
Oh my gosh. I love hearing that. Yes. I feel like you were just, I don't know, we met in the funniest, coolest way, but like, you know, when you just meet someone, you're like, I feel like we just have a soul connection. And
Totally. I'm like, Lauren doesn't know it, but we're about to be besties. She doesn't know it yet. For those of you who don't know a lot about you, can you give us a little bit about your background and about how you got into blogging and writing and sharing about clean living, how you started Standard, and just a little bit about your background?
so I was actually born out here. And then my family moved to Texas when I always say we were two. I have a twin sister, so I feel like I always refer to us as we. But we were two. We moved to Texas, so we grew up there. And in Dallas. Interesting background, but my parents actually were divorced from when we were 4 to 11. And then they got remarried to each other when we were 11. So it was just like a big journey of learning, but also my parents really prioritized us throughout that whole experience and divorce.
Yeah.
But my sister and I feel like one of the beautiful things is we're just like, have always been best friends. And I feel like, and each other's biggest supporters. And I don't know if that's because my parents were divorced, so we just like bonded extra tightly to each other.
Yeah.
But she just, yeah, I feel like she gets me better than anyone. I get her better than anyone. And we just have such a sweet relationship, and I just am so grateful for her. But anyways, so yeah, my parents got back together, and they have always been like very healthy, active people. So I feel like I learned just from like being in that with them. So I grew up with like that mentality, but also, so my mom had an eating disorder through college, I think. And so she was always super honest and open with my sister and I about how we view our bodies. And just like, if you ever are struggling with how you're viewing your body, or if you feel like you're this way or this way, like just talk about it. Like, we're here to talk about it. And so I feel like from a very early age, I just had a very like healthy view of food in relation to my body and just like how I viewed myself. When it was time for college, so I should say, I loved my like growing up years. We spent
Yeah.
a lot of time at the lake. My dad had a lake house. And so I feel like I just had a really good childhood. And our family was also like very just connected and had really good community around us. And then, okay, so when it was time for college, I went to Texas A&M because my sister was going there, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. My first semester, I was like, okay, I feel like I have more clarity. I feel like I got just such a clear vision when I was there, just like, I am passionate about creative things and like fashion, but in kind of a different way. Like, I wasn't like obsessed about what I was wearing every day. It wasn't that. It was more like
Yeah.
the depth behind it, I guess, and like the stories behind it and just how people started, what they're doing, and certain things like that, and just what it represents. So I ended up moving to New York that next year, and I did an internship with Gossip Girl Wardrobe and Michael
So fun.
Corporate. Yeah, it was really so fun. And
I mean, my daughter would like die if she heard this right now. That's like her favorite show. I should not be letting her watch it. It's like it's like what's old is new again for these teens. Like, I'm going to tell her that she will flip out.
yes, it was also such an interesting time, but like really cool because so the writer's strike was happening then.
Oh, right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I was like 19. And so I was like going to New York, and my parents were like, we feel like, but there was nothing for me to do if the writer's strike was still going on. So we didn't know when that was going to end. So my parents were like, we still feel like you need to go. And I was like, I do too. And so I ended up going, and I remember calling. She was like my big sister at church, I felt like, and she worked for Michael Kors. I didn't really know even what she did specifically. She was like his kind of like right hand woman. And I just remember calling her and being like, Lindsay, okay, here's my situation. I'm in the city. The writer's strike is happening. So I actually like don't have an internship, but I'm doing school online. Like, are there any opportunities at Michael Kors? And she was like, yes, come work with us in corporate. And whenever, if the writer's strike ends, if not, she was like, you can stay here the whole semester, but if it ends, just go there and like transition over there. So it was super nice because I got just such a good experience with actually just the people of New York. Like, I feel like people just wrapped around me and taught me so much. Like, even the ladies at Michael Kors, and got to do just really cool stuff. But I was there to just do anything. I'm like, tell me what to do, and I will do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I just got to be like around so many different people. And the writer's strike ended up actually ending halfway through my semester. So I went over to Gossip Girl Wardrobe, same experience, the most wonderful, like intimate, amazing time of relationships and learning about a whole different side of the industry.
Yeah.
So when I got back home, I was just kind of going through like, okay, what did I love the most and what did I learn from this? And it was a lot just like I love the people. And I also just love, yeah, like the stories behind it. So I decided to start a blog, which is funny because then
Like, I don't think then I would even know what a blog was.
no, it's actually so crazy because I don't know if you know who Jerry Hirsch is,
No.
but she was the only blog I knew about. And it was like just inspiration photos that she would take, like of anything that she would see. And it's so funny because now circling around, we're like, we know each other and all this stuff. And I'm like, she's the first blog I ever followed, like almost 15 years ago. It's just so crazy. But yeah, I started that and then started reporting on like New York, London, Paris. Sorry, not London. New York, Paris, Montreal Fashion Weeks. And it was like the best.
I mean, what a dream come true job for like just graduating college.
It is so funny to look back because growing up, like my sister was the one that talked more and I was more quiet and all this stuff. But when I went to New York, it was like I just came out of my shell. And I would just do the fun, crazy stuff at Fashion. Like I would literally like take my professional camera and get in the front row of photographers to get like the pictures I needed for my blog.
And they were probably like, "Who is this girl with this like little camera?" And like this, like probably was like a was it like a WordPress or probably WordPress wasn't even out then, like blogging. It was probably like this, like I don't know, like from scratch blog. It's so cute and funny.
And I like became really good friends with the photographers. It's just so funny. Like I look back and just I would go to every event and like interview people and like I'm like, who is this person?
That's amazing though. Good for you. Like having that drive at such a young age to be like, this is what I want to do and not being afraid and putting yourself out there and just like, I'm not really sure what's happening here, but I'm just going to jump in the mix of it and just get in the middle and trust that people will be kind to me and I'll figure it out. Which is so rare. Like, I don't know that you could do that in today's day and age and it would be the same. There's something about like being scrappy, not that you were scrappy necessarily, but like just kind of getting in there and like figuring it out as you go. And just like having the ability to play before there was like so much pressure with everything online now, having to be like so curated and perfect. Just such a different fun time.
I don't know, like expanding themselves as people and just like their talent and gifts and stuff. And everyone would just kind of join together, I feel like.
So tell me then, so you were blogging them for a little bit and then you were talking mainly about fashion and then it sort of like morphed over to clean living. And we'll get into like kind of like what prompted that in a little bit and we can talk about it. Did you know like was blogging going to be like the thing and then writing became like obviously like really big for you and starting Standard? Did you know that was that a vision you always had or did it just kind of morph into it?
It was really interesting. I remember I was working at this clothing store and I was back from New York and Michael Kors offered me a job in New York. But I had like started my blog and I was doing the fashion weeks and stuff. And I remember being on the tollway in Dallas and like talking to my dad about it because he actually worked in the fashion industry for years and just knew things very like logistically how it works. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I could move to New York and work for Michael Kors or just do I keep going on this journey of like my own business basically and blog, but it felt just so unknown then, there wasn't any history in that. And he was just like, I encourage you to like stay your course. You're so passionate about this. Like with Michael Kors, it's like there's a limit of growth there. Like, and so he was like, you might love it, but just go where your heart is like taking you. And so I like ended up just sticking with that. And what's super cool actually now looking back on it, so we had a group of like 8 girls that were living in Dallas and Amber Venz was one of them actually who started Reward Style.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
we all would meet together and be like, how do we make this a business? Like, how do we make
Yeah.
this a business for ourselves? And we just like came together to support each other and figure out like, how do we do this to like be our livelihood basically. So it's just like so sweet too, that like little
Yes.
community, but to see what it's like all grown into is just so
You were
wild.
like the OGs of like influencers, like in the very beginning, before it was a thing.
Totally. I remember telling people what I did if they would ask, they'd be like, oh, cool.
Totally. Wait, what? Oh, that's amazing. Wait, and I just love your dad. I would devoured your book, My Beautiful Heart, or Your Beautiful Heart. The past couple of days, I was reading it to my kids, a lot of it. But your dad, there's so many moments that you share about your dad in the book, and then just hearing that he was the one to be like, Lauren, just keep going. You're so passionate about this because I feel like, especially now, I look at like John Paul, like with our kids, and I think if they were to come to him with that same question, I don't know that we'd be as strong as parents to be like not follow something that's predictable and guaranteed and be like, just go out on your own. Like, I love that your dad, however many years ago that was, like 15 years ago, that he just believed in you so much. I think that's so special and so rare. I'm kind of have like a little semi like fangirl over your dad.
I was like, I could just hang with him all day, every day.
I love this. Okay, so can we jump into? I want to talk a little bit about. Thank you, first of all, for sharing all of your background. It's so good to know. I didn't know any of that stuff about you, so fun. Um, then things sort of shifted for you. to around this time with your accident, and you share so beautifully and so openly about your accident. But I'd love for those who don't know, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about what happened with your accident and sort of how that shifted and changed things for you, just as a woman?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I was in a little two-seater plane, and our friends had they lived on this little airport a little bit north of where we lived in Dallas. And I would like go every now and then and go just like fly for fun with some of the people there. And we had gone to church this one night and went over there. It was like family friends also. And we went up and looked at Christmas lights. And I went with this one guy, and everyone was just kind of taking turns. So I was the first one, and then someone was going to get on after me. So I just got out how I knew to always get out. Plane was still on. So I basically got out at the propeller. And yeah, it was crazy. I was still like conscious. I just don't remember any of that. And I've done like deep counseling. So I'm always like, I wonder if this memory will come up, but it never has. But I lost my left hand, left eye, traumatic brain injury, and a lot of other injuries as well. And I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. I mean, they just didn't even know if I would, they didn't even think I was going to live. But on top of that, didn't think I would be the same person or even have the ability to function um, if I lived. And so just the fact that I am like who I am still, like the same person, is just like such a miracle. And oh my gosh, it just completely, I mean, changed my whole life in so many ways. So I feel like one thing that I think is most important to me and how it helped shift me was I just feel like I lived in my own little happy bubble and
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
didn't really understand the reality of life as a whole.
Yeah,
Which
I
isn't
get
like,
that.
yeah, which isn't like a bad thing. I feel like that is something you grow into. I just became like way more through a lot of work, like counseling and stuff like that, just more aware of myself. I feel like I can never like actually communicate my emotions or pinpoint them, partly because I had a twin and she would like communicate for us.
Oh, that's so interesting. I could see that. Okay.
Even like so we would feel the same thing, but then our personalities would come out in conflict. So like I would be the peacemaker, and she would be just like, she would just be really honest and like say what she felt.
Yeah.
And so it was like I let her do that job for me almost without
Yep.
realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just became way more aware of myself, aware of pain, just more empathetic towards what people go through in life. And then also just had to totally redefine like who I was as a person, because I was in such a physical, like aesthetic world of fashion and, so many things like that. And to like be impacted so physically was just crazy to be in that world and have that occur. And even like half my head was shaved. And so just like dealing with even where I like held my identity, I feel like prior to my accident, like I just wouldn't spend much time getting ready. I was just super chill, like get up, brush my hair maybe a little bit, but like I would like look put together, but like just almost how I view just like beach living, kind of just like, you know? And so it was very interesting to feel actual like genuine insecurities after my accident. And yeah, just fears of like what men would think of me, because I think I held a lot of identity on just like guys thinking I was attractive and getting attention, and um so many different things like that. So yeah, I really had to like learn again for myself what my identity was, and it showed me how much I care about like what people think of me, you know?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that memory. That has to be, can't feel easy or fun going back and talking about that. Although I don't know if it feels that way for you, because I don't know. What has it been now? 14 years, 13 years? but going back and reliving it.
Like, I feel like my family, it's probably harder for my family to go back. Yeah, it was like for me, I woke up with it, and then like all the pain started. Like I had to start working through all that, but I wasn't like, this sounds so strange, but I wasn't there for like the really traumatic parts.
Right, right. And I'm sure, and we don't need to go deep into this, but I'm sure there had to be some layer of not necessarily like, I don't want to say that a guilt about it, but like knowing that your family was going through something and you weren't there to be a part of it, but like they witnessed it. It's almost like they had an experience that you weren't a part of.
So the story blew up the night of, and like no one really knew how. And I don't think my parents even knew that was the case for a couple days. And so having to navigate that world, and like they literally had to change my name in the hospital.
Oh,
So many things to just protect me from so much. So that was a whole different aspect. I actually didn't know about that until like probably a week after I was out of the hospital, and I was wondering why everyone was coming up to me in public. Like I was like, how?
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. How
I'm
do they know?
something's happened to me because I'm like
Yeah.
have my eye wrapped up in my like
Yeah.
arm and stuff. But I was like, everyone was being so nice, but I was also like, how does everyone know about this? So just
Yeah.
really learning to navigate like truly how much your life can change in 1 second.
Gosh, no. No, and and I think that's so, I mean, listen, your story is not relatable in the sense of like that doesn't happen to everyone, but in the sense of the idea of like we sort of all live a little bit naive for a while in our life, especially growing up the way that you did, like having such a wonderful parents and such a strong foundation of things. And I could see how then it's like almost everything shifted from that point on, that like that sort of innocence was sort of taken. And then this shift of like, now who am I? And like even just like coming to terms like your own identity, and not in any way that you would like have thought of yourself as like vain or like cared about your looks, but all of a sudden have to be like face to face with it is a totally different thing that not everyone has to deal with at such a young age. So it's been, we just said 13 years. Looking where you are now, and I'm sure it's been a long road, to get to where you are, and we can get into it, but do you feel now that like do you feel confident in who you are now, and like your, whether it's your physical body and getting comfortable, with your eye and your arm and all the things that came with the accident? Does it feel like that is who you are now and you embrace that? What is that like for you?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like there's different layers of it. Like for years, I mean, it's taken me so long to feel comfortable just being okay with my arm out without my prosthetic arm on. And I, something super interesting happened. So we were in Idaho, where we go sometimes in the summer, and or most years in the summer. And I remember so I had a trip to Dallas planned, and I was like, I need to take both my arms in. I had one that I like swim in, and then my normal day to day, and they both look very realistic. And I was like, they need to get touched up a little bit. So I'm going to send them in now, because then I'll be in Dallas and I'll be with my family and my friends there, which I like didn't care about not having my arm on in front of. Or like I went through all that with them. So they were all with me like from day one. So I sent it in. For some reason, FedEx would not release my arms to our tech, who does the like paint and custom skin and stuff like that. So anyways, it became this funny. It was like funny, but also just like, what is going on? And they're a sweet family. So they were like trying to get the arms. They're like, can you give us these arms? We need to do this. So all that to say, usually it would have taken like 1 or 2 days to get my arms done, and I would have had them back. So the trip was over in Dallas. We went back to Idaho, and I didn't have my arms. So in my head, I was
Yeah.
like, I can hide more. I can like wear long sleeves in like like 90s, the
Yeah.
90
Yeah.
degree temperatures, and I like won't get in the lake. I won't put my swimsuit on. I'll just be stuck in my house and hiding
Yeah.
really who I am. Or I can get out and just be like, this is who I am. And I was realizing so much how it was like my own issue, that I think I put on like, what are people going to think? People, I don't know, just so many different thoughts and assumptions, and just realized, whoa, this is like the most freeing thing. Everyone around me, I think, it felt endearing to people, like being like, thank you. We've been waiting for you to just be. you. I'm so grateful that happened with my arms to like give me that big first step. But also, I was friends with this girl, Lexi, who I met her when she was probably like 13, like 12 or 13, super shy. She was born without one of her hands. And um, so I feel like she would come to me to like ask me questions and like, I was maybe like a mentor for her a little bit in that way. And then it totally switched so she was so shy and embarrassed of her arm. And then she completely grew out of that. And like watching her just be so free in who she was truly inspired me to do that. I was like, what the heck am I doing just hiding who I am? So we talk about that, Lexi and I, all the time. Like, it's just so cool how watching her just helped me so much to get out of my fear of being who I was.
Yeah, yeah. When was this Idaho trip? Was this fairly recently, did you say?
It was probably like 3 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was
Which is fairly recent, really, when you think about it, because it's been then you were with your arm, for a long time to get comfortable with it. And I could only imagine what it would feel like, not necessarily it being a crutch, but it's like you could get attached to that of like wanting that little shield of protection, even though it's not, we know it's not, but you could get attached to that. It's been so beautiful. When I first was introduced to you and started following you, I didn't know that you had a prosthetic. I knew nothing and I didn't know a lot about, I knew you had an accident, but I didn't know much about it. And I think just recently I've been seeing you share more without your arm, like pulling your hair back or like doing your makeup. And I have to say, I don't know, I'm going to get emotional about this and it's your experience, but it's really beautiful to see because it feels very real. And there is something, I read this part in your book where you talked to your dad, said something about like, Lauren, your arm is so beautiful, like God makes no mistakes. And it really was this thing of like seeing something so raw and real is so refreshing to someone because it feels like that, but you're seeing a part of them. They're expressing a part of themselves that otherwise we keep hidden in a world that is so filtered and not real. And so, all the BS that comes with the world we live in, to see something like, oh wow, it's not only it's just more beautiful than it would be almost if you had like if your arm. And so anyway, just for everyone who like witnesses that and it follows you, I just want to say like thank you for sharing so vulnerably because I'm sure that cannot feel easy. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if it does feel easy or doesn't, but I've noticed it lately and I'm like, oh my God, she's amazing.
Thank you so much. That means so much. I feel like it's one of those things where the first few times feel really hard and scary.
Yeah.
And then as you keep doing it, it's almost like that thing. It's a type of therapy, actually, but you can like do it with yourself, but just
Yeah.
like doing your fear,
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
release that fear. Yeah. Because I actually remember our friends, Matt and Ariel, they create the cutest, like funniest content. And we were on the beach soon after I had met them like a couple years ago. And Ariel was like, oh my gosh, I have the best idea. Okay, Jace, you're holding her arm, but then like you are still holding it, but it's like there's a button that you can
Stop,
hit.
stop. I know where you're going.
Yeah. Where it like comes up and he keeps walking, but he's still talking to me. But I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wait, you have my arm." And so we did this whole thing and I was like panicking inside. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, be strong. You got do this. Like, this is who
Yeah.
you are. Why am I so afraid? And I was like sweating and like all this stuff. And like, but none of them were thinking anything about it because they didn't know me well enough to know that that was like an insecurity of mine. And Ariel afterwards goes, well, or I go, you don't know this, but like, thank you for just doing that because that was like a huge step for me, but you had no clue.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you shared that. I think it can be easy for people to see other people's lives and think they must feel a certain way about themselves. And, you know, you have well, first of all, you're stunning. Okay. And on top of it, you have carry yourself in such a beautiful way and your home is so beautiful in the way you live. It can be easy to think like, of course she feels comfortable. Of course she feels, like it must be easy for her, even with her injury. But look at her. She's so perfect in every other way. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, even, 13 years later, it's something that is still on your mind, and that no matter what, we're all still feeling like, I just want to be seen and loved and know that I'm safe and accepted. And I think that like it's something that no matter what our insecurities, like maybe never goes away. I don't know. Like I still, it's something that I still like daily, like, I'm, 45 and I still cannot say that I'm 100% comfortable in my skin yet. I don't know when that happens.
Like when I had like when I had River and Poppy, I feel like that released so much of my insecurity. I was like, I don't know why. Maybe it also filters like what's valuable and not, but also like me putting on my arm and going out with River and Poppy is way harder than just like my arm like this. And so in my mind, I was like, these are my people. This is who I am. I don't know.
Yes,
That
yes,
helped
yes, yes.
so much.
Yeah, there is a freedom that comes in motherhood because you're like, that they love you. They don't love you because of like what the house looks like or what we look like or what we do. They're like, they innately like love you. It's just this unconditional love that maybe some of us have never had before. So I get that so much.
So true. And okay, side note, because I do want to share, this is like I feel like it's been like a long time struggle for me, but my eye, I feel like Jace knows the best, out of anyone probably because he sees my like day to day. But like the climate will impact it sometimes, so it would be like really dry or like won't be blinking or like something like that where I'll have to help it more at night to like blink and stuff. And so I was just like, it would just get very overwhelming for me because I would get like insecure about it because I'm like more focused on that than enjoying like the present time I was in with friends or wherever. But then also just like, yeah, I was just like insecure about the way it looked and like just to have my hair pulled back was like a really big like reveal for me. I feel like that was so vulnerable. And so I feel like I just did a ton of work through that, like body work, therapy, just so many different things. And I feel like it just kept staying there, like just that insecurity. And so I was like, okay, this is like an interesting thing that I had to like decide for myself, but just I was like, I feel like I want to do like all of a sudden just clicked with me. I was like, I feel like I want to just like do a surgery on my eye and get even like I would get filler on this side of my face because it helped to like fill my scar and lift so my eye would be like supported underneath. Um, so I did that for years and it was game changing. So I ended up doing like an eye surgery on this side where it like lift or took off some of the weight up here and then got a fat transfer. And I was like, also just like doing that with no shame was like really healing for me because I was
Yeah,
like,
I can see that.
yeah, I was like, this is taking up so much of my energy and like I'm just
Yeah,
gonna do this. And
yeah,
it has helped my physical eye so much, just like not respond to weather. I don't know what it was, but it's also just made it more comfortable in general. But I like want to be super open about that too, because like sometimes, I mean, you know how much I talk about just like health and wellness and, you know, just like fully as a whole, like representing that
yeah.
in life. And like, I feel like plastic surgery basically can be like, what are you doing? Um,
Yeah, I 100% get what you're saying of like, it can feel like almost like in some people's eyes could be like contradictory. Like, I thought you were just supposed to like love yourself. But I do think it's one of those things where it's like, you have to look at the whole picture and know that it's like, if this is going to make you feel good, that there are reasons those things exist and there are things. So were you having resistance to doing it or just resistance about sharing about it?
I was like, I'm saving overall my emotional capacity or my emotional energy so much because I'm like taking out this huge thought that I think was just over and over circling in my brain, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm so glad you shared that because I think that is like a real thing of like a women not wanting to have certain things done because of like the stigma maybe around it or the shame that they may feel, which is silly, but I understand why that exists. People make us feel that way. So it makes sense that you would feel that way. But I agree with you. Like if there's something that you can do to empower you to just take some of that like inner narrative away for a little bit, my God, like that's what it's there for. And, like life is too short to be, I don't know, not taking advantage of some of these things that we have at our fingertips. So I'm so glad that you did that. And I'm so glad that you shared that. And I know recently you were sharing something a little bit about like wearing your hair pulled back and in a center part. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. And I think even all of that just gives more women permission. It's like, you got to do whatever you need to do so that you feel good inside. Like, regardless of like how other people interpret it, like you need to, and it's so hard to do. It's so much easier said than done. But I really love how you just like you walk the walk. Like I'm gonna do what I need to do to like take care of myself, which includes like, by the way, like still going to therapy, facing like you're doing all these things really consciously and intentionally. It's not as if like you're numbing and tuning out. You're like, I'm just gonna go do this, quick and easy fix. And no way was that what it was. And I think when there's intention behind it, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, I agree.
Can we talk a little bit about just speaking of intention? I'd love to just talk about your faith for a minute because this is something that is really important in my life right now and something I don't want to say I'm necessarily like struggling with, but a little bit of like my faith has shifted a lot over the past decade. And I'd be so curious. I think women listening, it's something that has been a little bit polarizing, like talking about God or religion in the world right now. And I think if there's ever a time right now where we need more faith in the humanity in the world, it's now. So I'd just be curious if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about like what your faith looks like and your relationship with God, and like what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, well, I grew up in a very, if anyone's listening, they grew up in like a Baptist church, they kind of know what I'm referring to, but just, yeah, more like rules and not as much like a relationship with God. And so I was so grateful though, because my parents really balanced the teaching of faith, like in a way that's real and genuine and relationship driven rather than like, you cannot do these things and you can do these things, and truly like living in the freedom of God. And um, I like just love Jesus so much. And I feel like it was really cool to see during my accident, actually, like the depth of my faith grew so much. And I know in that kind of situation, it can be like, God, I'm like so mad at you. You put me through this. But you can have those. I feel like what I'm realizing is that, I mean, God like knows us better than we know ourselves. So like he's not mad at any emotion, any feeling, anything like that, which also gave me a lot of freedom, because in that note, like going through healing of losing a limb specifically, they say is like same as losing like a sibling in your family. I know. So I did go through, I mean, anger, so many things which were like emotions I really hadn't fully experienced in full before that. And so I was like scared of those emotions. So to me, to always have like God with me was so healing. And to be like, he's been through so much, like Jesus went through so much for us, and he like understands that suffering, was like very just strengthening for me. Um, and yeah, just like a really beautiful time of like depth and dependence and all these things when I feel like everything around me was kind of falling. Except for my people, but just more like my physical, just just a lot of like things to process and trauma and things like that. So that was like a big, I think, time for me to just really like grow my personal faith. And then I feel like I Jason and I, it's really cool like together, because we have similar stories of growing up, like how we grew up. His being a little more intense in that world. Like Dallas, I love so much, but it's more cultural to like be a Christian. And,
Yeah.
you know, everyone kind of like talks about it all the time. But like here in LA, what's so, I think, refreshing to me is that people are just real. Everyone's on their journeys. And like to
Yeah.
me, I've just had like the coolest conversations with people about like, you don't believe in God? Okay, cool. Tell me like what do you believe? I feel like there's just freedom in really expressing like what you are, what you believe, what you're going through here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It and actually strengthened my faith because I'm like, this is life. Like this is like the reality of life. Like we're all going through our journeys and like we have the freedom to like believe in what we feel led to believe in and what's there. And for me personally, like I feel like God just is always consistent. So like that I think is the biggest like hope that I like really depend on. So even I remember Jason and I were trying to get pregnant for a couple years. We were honestly having so much fun. We like didn't realize it had been that long. We're like, oh shoot, we might need to get like checked because I'm not kidding.
I love it.
It was so funny. So we ended up doing that, and then we ended up going with through IVF with River, and then Poppy is natural. But like even like
Oh,
that,
I didn't know that. Okay, so one IVF and one natural afterwards.
yeah, which was so wild. We were shocked, but um, the best surprise. But like
Yes.
in that process, like I feel like you can be panicked of like I really want a baby. Like why am I not getting pregnant? All these things. But I feel like faith wise, like Jason and I are both like God actually knows the perfect time. First of all, for us to be parents, but second of all, for like this baby to enter into this world, like their time is known. And so, like, to me, we had just such a smooth IVF experience because we're just like, we're doing our part and all we can do. But like, ultimately, like, we don't control everything. And so that always gives me just so much peace, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Is it something where do you feel, in your day to day world that you have a connection with God every day? Is this something that's like a daily practice for you?
Yeah, I'm not always like reading the Bible or
Yeah.
devotionals or things like that. But I feel like I find just so much connection outdoors. And
Yeah. I could see that.
yeah, I just, that's a huge thing for me. But also just like song, like, um, we just like, have you heard, do you know Aiden King or like,
Yes.
I
Yes. Yes.
don't know if you've heard his new songs. He's one of our like best friends, but
Oh, stop. Okay. It's amazing.
like playing the music he just
Yeah.
worship music is like
Yeah.
so calming to me and like
I
such a
agree.
or to connect with God.
Yeah.
But also I feel like I don't know what is going on, but Jason and I both have been like it has just felt extra like stressful. I don't know if it's like the air, like what is going on.
Yes. No, it is. It is. And I just feel like collectively, like we're all feeling it. It's a very heavy, heavy time. And, I really appreciate you sharing about your faith because I think it's something some people are a little bit more private about, which I wish we could be more open. And I think you're right. It is more interesting. I grew up really Catholic. John Paul, my partner, was named after the Pope. Like his family is very religious. We were married in a Catholic church, baptized all of our children. They went to a Catholic school. And I don't know, it was almost like my faith was on autopilot, if that makes any sense. It's just because like this is how I was raised and this is how we raised the kids. And there was almost like an expectation on us that we would be Catholic and that we'd go to church his parents are very, very religious. If they're listening, I hope they're not listening, and they're actually incredible, incredible people. And they've been a wonderful foundation for us. We have a wonderful relationship with them, but our relationship with God is a little bit different. And, as we've gotten older and started raising our kids, John Paul and I started questioning a little bit more of like, well, what do we want? What do we really value? And it was something that like up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we didn't question. It was just kind of like, well, this is what we believe and this is what we've always done. This is tradition. And we hadn't gone through like something like a major trauma moment that helped us like find that, even though we had a strong connection with God, or both of us always did. But it really was, our number three I don't know why I'm telling you this story. So random. But he is a little bit more like non-conforming of like what a traditional boy would be. And as we started thinking about like how he would maneuver through the world, one of the things I started recognizing really quickly when we were sitting in church, I'm like, in the Catholic faith, he wouldn't be love for what I believe will end up being what love will look like for him won't be accepted. And then I was like, I can't sit in this pew anymore. Then like I can't agree. I don't know how to do this. So this was a long way of saying I've been really questioning like my relationship with the church, not necessarily with God. And so we have broken away from the Catholic faith. About 4 years ago, we broke away. And it's funny because I actually feel like I have a stronger connection with God now that there's like no middleman, if that makes any sense. And, I like go walking every morning and I try to go twice a day, but every morning when I walk and I do a lot of it without like listening to music and I just like look at the ocean and I really feel like God is just like always putting on this show for me. And
Yeah.
it's like he'll be
Like,
like, cue the birds,
yeah, yeah.
and I just like feel like their love and like, oh my gosh, I'm so loved right now in this moment. You're putting on this whole beautiful show for me. And I feel this like deep, deep connection to God that's deeper than like it's weird. I don't know. I can't explain it, but like I walk home with like the biggest smile on my face and I feel like just so like happy and loved. And yet I haven't set foot in a church in years. And so that feels really weird to me. I'm always like, God, this is weird. I don't know. And my kids are like, what faith are we? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like we're beach walking faith. I don't know.
I feel like kind of amazing because, well, I was going to say, I mean, so much is going on in the church that feels like hard to trust.
Yeah.
Kind of what you're saying. Yeah, there's like something going on. I mean, so much recently, but I just feel like I, knowing that, like, yeah, like God is separate from that.
Right, right. I'm like, that's man and
Right,
what man says. And then there's God. And like he and I are good.
right.
It's the rest I'm not sure sure about.
Totally. No, I'm like actually right there with you. Yeah, I've Jace started this awesome church at his house, and now it's like in Beverly Hills, but I haven't been able to go much because of my fatigue in the past. But then now, kids, it's like it starts at like 7 in the city, and I'm like, I'll be back at midnight, and that's just and not. I don't know. So, but God is so in that church. But like for me, I feel like there are just different ways we're finding to like connect with God with people.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah,
And that
yeah,
like to me
yeah,
is the church. Like in the Bible, it's not really about like a building or a place. It's like
yeah.
about coming together as people. I'm like, that is what that is to me.
Yeah. And I feel like I almost sense like a resurgence of that. And it gives me hope where I'm like, I actually think with our kids are older, like this is coming back, like where like people are taking back, the faith. And they're like, I'm going to have it within me and we're going to do it on different terms that feels more inclusive and feels more like what was originally intended for this faith to be. So it gives me hope, but I'm glad that it resonates with you.
But I feel like that's also cool for your kids to see like the reality of like y'all shifting and like developing your faith.
No, 100%. And I always say to them, like, look, like you have to do what follow like your values. You have to like really live them. Like you can't do things blindly. And like, I know it's hard for our parents to understand like why we don't participate in some of the things we used to anymore. And I'm like, and that's okay. That's for them. But like this feels really good for us right now. And we're figuring it out as we go. And you have permission in your life to do the same of like, there will be things that, I do that you may not agree with. And I always say to the kids, like, I'm just living the life that I know how to live and you're coming along with me and you get to pick and choose and you have agency over especially for my teens now. I'm like, you have agency over what happens, with you. And, like a silly thing like JP and I chose to stop drinking a few years ago. And I always say to the kids, like, you may end up wanting to drink. Like, I can't tell you what to do. That's your journey. But wait, speaking of transitioning a little bit to kids and motherhood now, I love the way you mother, River and Poppy, and you seem so intentional and sweet with them. Like, did you always know you wanted to have kids? And did you know you were going to be such a good mom? Like, was this on your radar?
I actually was not the type. I feel like I wasn't the girl that was like, I can't wait for my wedding. I can't wait to have
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wasn't ever like that. But I like wanted those things. But I no, I don't think I knew like really what to expect.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've learned so much about, well, I feel like there's so much resource we have now. Like I talked to my sister a lot about
Oh,
it's like amazing.
no, you are okay. First of all, when I had my first two babies, like even
Yeah.
like my last two, like we had nothing. Like we didn't even have like didn't even have like I think we were just getting flip phones, and like
Oh,
there was no. Do you know what I mean? Like it was. I feel like
yes.
that dates me, but I was like, wait a second, they have like cool nursery stuff. Like Lauren, it was hideous. Our nurseries were hideous. Like we did not know any of these cool things. I was like, wait a second, I feel like they got a better motherhood.
My sister has like a 5 and 8 year old. She was like, I didn't even have that with Belle, like who's 5. Like it just is very new. So first, I'm like so grateful for that because I'm like, I have learned so much through. I read this one book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, and it like helped me tremendously. I feel like you would love this book. Um, Even if it doesn't even matter what age your kids are or anything.
I'm
It's
writing
just,
it down. Hunt,
it's,
gather, parent.
it is so, so good. But we are just, I don't know. I feel like the biggest thing, kind of like what you were saying earlier, is just like everyone wants to feel known, safe, and loved. And like I like find it just like I don't know, my heart just could like explode every day because just watching like River, especially right now, just he's 2.5, but just like whole being is just like developing in the sweetest way. And I just like want to know every part of him. And same with Poppy. But like, you know, it has been like I can have like conversations with River and same with Poppy, but like, you know, in much more intentional ways. And he just like went through I don't know if you felt the earthquake from Malibu like a couple weeks ago,
Yes,
the bigger one.
yes.
Okay, so I was like home. Jace was on a work trip in Nashville, and I was home by myself with the kids, and we always get up at like 7:30. So Benny and I are in bed, and like the earthquake set off the alarm, and it just like threw River into a tailspin. Like with also, I like looked at the video on his monitor, like he's just waking up, and like his whole room is going like this, and then the
Yes.
so I like realized because every day he's been like loud noise, scary, like
Yes.
randomly. So I'm like, literally, that's how we process trauma, and like
Yeah.
I'm watching him do that. So it's just been like honestly the most like special thing to help him like heal through that and just go with your like mom instincts and be like, he needs to be around horses. He's like magnetized towards animals and seeing this one horse like run up to him 2 days in a row and him just starting to tell him about the noise. I was like, and so cool. But yeah, I know. I feel like I'm just like realizing how important attunement is to your kids and their needs. And they're both so different, as you know, with your kids. And just like understanding them individually and like truly being with them. Like, and not being on my phone. Like, I try to like separate work from my time ever with them. Or just my phone because I'm
Yeah,
like,
I know what you mean.
yeah, just like
They
face to,
sense it.
yeah, so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, it's just been so special.
No, I think that you're so right on though. I think like just like attuning to your kids' needs and like really being aware. Like I feel like, especially as they get older, they start to pick up on like if you're really present with them. And, I think so much it can be avoided by just really like giving them your attention. I know it sounds so silly. And I always say to them, like, when I'm with you, I'm 100% on. And then, like, if I need to step away or do something, like, I'm not. My kids know, and there's never like a pull on me because they know, like, when I'm with you, I'm 100% yours. Like, you are the most important thing in my world. And I think just like letting them feel seen by you and like know that they're like safe, it makes like everything else is kind of doesn't really matter. Like I mean, there's so much stuff out there and theories and do this and do that. And I sort of like all kind of went out the window for me. And it's like, as long as they feel like that I see them and I'm listening, they're good, which I feel like you do that so beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's even growth. I saw this the other day. in my own realization of myself helps me to be more attuned to them.
It's so true. I'm so glad you said that because I do feel like half of the stuff that, and mainly this is for me with like my teens, but I feel like they can almost like get a bad rap sometimes, like being moody or doing this or like being, whatever. Like there's a whole thing around teens that I think it's not true, but I think so much of it is because like as mothers, it's really hard to get out of your own way and to get your ego, like to check your ego at the door when you start parenting your kids. And I think it is one of those things like when I'm really grounded and present in myself, it's so much easier to parent. It's like really, it's my groundedness that has to come first. And then it just like calms everybody right down. It's so wild. So I'm always like, it's us we should be worried about. The kids are fine.
Yeah, I was thinking that recently because we like Jason and I went to counseling the other day. We are working through just like being on the same page with certain things, but like really learning about it. It's cool like when something hard comes up and it like pulls out. I feel like we've been in this negative cycle of like communicating. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've studied like attachment styles at all.
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay. I like learned so much about myself. I was like, I lean more towards anxious attachment in conflict, which is like
Okay.
just this extra need for like to be seen and to feel safe and to be validated.
Yes.
And I feel like he's like, you really have to like learn how to validate. Like I'm learning that too, where it's
Yeah.
not agreeing, but just like validating, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was like, Jason and I were just like, we like when we come to places like this or we just can't get on the same page, like we want to work through it because ultimately that's showing River and Poppy how to work through conflict. Even if they're not even like watching it, they're sensing everything. And yeah, I just never want to forget that because it's kind of like what you're saying with when we were talking about insecurities. It's just like our whole life we'll never like get there. Like we just always need to keep
No.
working,
No.
you know?
Yeah. No, you'll never get there. And I love that you shared that about like you and Jason. And I mean, JP and I've been married 17 years and we've been raising kids for 15 of those. And I
Wow.
still feel like we're just getting on the same page. Okay. So like that's just happening.
Yes.
I mean, I joke, but like we do a good job together, but it's a constant change. But I do think you're so right in the thing of like, our kids see us fight all the time. Not that we have a house that's like always fighting, but they see it because that's real life. There's conflict. And they see mom and dad like make up and they see the repair and they see like, and they're okay. And she feels safe still with him and they can share things. And, disagreeing isn't a form of like not loving someone. Like they're not abandoning each other. But I agree with you. It's so important for the kids to see that and to like learn how to model. Like this is what I mean, I don't know if we're like the healthiest relationship, but we're somewhat healthy of a relationship, I guess. But to see what a healthy relationship looks like.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like that's more, I mean, I might be totally wrong, but I would think seeing that and your parents like see the disagreement, but that you're still like secure in your love for each other, and then like seeing the restoration of it, like, yeah, I think that's just so healthy to like observe.
I agree with you so much. One of the last things I wanted just to ask you about, well, I have two last things I want to talk to you about, but you had mentioned something about no, you are like incredibly driven. You have these incredible, like so many wonderful projects and things you're working on. You have your own business, like you're a beautiful writer, and yet you have these two kids at home with you, and you're really present with them. And you were sharing a little bit about feeling this like internal, I don't want to say the word conflict, but a little bit of a pull of like, do I pursue my passions? And I think that is something that for so many women probably listening, so many of women are in this audience are mothers in this like midlife area and they've got kids at home in different stages and really want to be like present with their kids and are really ambitious and have a lot of creative drive and like feel this need to be like, and I also need to have this creative hustle, this because it fuels us in different ways. Can you share a little bit about like where you're sort of at with that internal, how to say
Yeah,
dialogue with yourself? Like what does that look like for you?
yeah. Jason and I have been talking about this so much this week because I feel like so it's just like has come up for me extra because Riv hurt his foot and had the trauma thing with the earthquake and then Poppy is just teething extra much. So both of them have just needed like extra,
Oh,
extra hands
yeah.
on, you know? And so we even have a nanny during the day, but like so much of that time I feel like I'm with them because I just love being with them.
Yes.
I'm like, I've really had to step back and be like, okay, first of all, I think you have to be like very like focused in on what you're um, agreeing to, or like what really I saw. Oh man, actually, I kind of want to read this. So my friend Maxine, I just love her so much. She posted this: decide what kind of life you actually want, and then say no to everything that isn't that. And I feel like that's what I'm learning because also, like what you're saying, it's so important to um, develop the person you are. And so that's what I've been struggling with because I'm like, okay, I love those things that I'm doing, but like nothing compares to being a mom for
Yeah.
me. That's just
Yeah.
top priority and desire, and to be a wife and um, just like create a safe home.
Yeah.
And so I've been like talking to, I have a management team for brand deals. Sorry. I talked to them about, okay, what's like a solution to where I can keep like doing what I love, but like actually not feeling distracted when I'm with them. So I'm like also good on to-do lists and like getting things done. So I've had to release that a little bit of like, I actually don't have to do all that in one day because I to be fully present for them, but then just coming up with solutions of like, okay, I need help. This is just my, you know, job industry or like, you know, things that I have to do. I'm like, I need someone to help me with content creation. I need an assistant to do these things just to like create more space for me. But and that can be hard in itself because you have to find the right people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. The delegation's almost even harder. It's like, of course, conceptually, like I'm happy to, but like getting that up and running is really hard. That's a job in and of itself.
totally, yes. And I even like my sister and I've been working on something together, like and it's taken us like probably 2 months to get into a rhythm because we both have
Yeah.
kids and we're like, and we both keep telling each other because we're driven, we're like, we're on our own time frame. Like we're the only people that put pressure on
Yeah.
ourselves. Like we're good.
Yeah.
And so I think keeping that in perspective as well, and just that there's no rush to get to where we want to be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you have to do it well, obviously, and with your full like intention and energy. But I guess just really like mapping out what that looks like for you in your life is what
Yeah.
I'm doing myself. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, top priority, me and taking care of myself and getting exercise, eating healthy, things like that. And then
Yeah.
my kids, and then having the ability to be spontaneous with them or with myself or with a friend, but then being able to put time into work. So I don't know if you ever fully understand that pace or rhythm.
I don't know that that ever like settles in for anyone, for any, let me say, for a mother. I don't know that that ever, like you ever really get that. And I am not a believer in balance. I don't even like the word, something like that. Just setting ourselves up to feel like there's like some magical thing that we're going to, you know, find. And I don't think that equilibrium like really exists if you're a mother who has outside ambitions. Like I just don't think that exists. And there's always these seasons where like you're going to be more in motherhood, and maybe the past couple of years you've been like really in it within motherhood, and pulling out a little bit to do other things feels like you feel that tension. There's a little bit of a pull because like you're separating yourself from the kids a little bit and like their needs and wanting to like run to them, whether it's like Riv with like getting settled after the earthquake. Like there will always be something. And not in any way saying that I'm relating or just sharing that. I understand that so much. And I'm still in my own world trying to figure that out, because the moment the kids need something, I'm like, you will always be first and foremost. And I need to learn how to like not dive in all the time.
Right? I know. What is your like day to day, or what have you
I
learned?
don't know. Well, I mean, one of the things for me is like, I've had to have conversations with John Paul about him taking over mentally a lot of things. I've like said to him, like, you need to like mentally take two of the kids from me. But I think like even though he's, the primary like breadwinner for our family and I'm still like getting some projects up and running, I'm always saying to him like my work is just as valid as your work. And he's so wonderfully like helpful as I see that Jason is really present. But I also think that there's like this invisible weight that they don't know and they're not caring. And I'm like, I need you though not to do it like a dad. I need you to do it like a mother would. Like be worrying about like when is the next dentist? Be thinking about like, oh, noticing like their shoes are too small. Like I got to order them some shoes. Like all of the things that like mentally as a woman I carry, like I'm handing that off to you. So that has been, and he's really trying and just like trusting that the kids can go to him for things. But no, I think it's one of the things for me has been like shedding a little bit of the guilt that comes with it, like that the kids don't need me. I think I feel really comfortable and safe in motherhood. Motherhood is something I feel like mothering is something I think I do well. You know what I mean? And so it's like I can get that like when things feel chaotic, whether it's like things aren't working so great on the podcast or whatever it is, I'm like, well, at least I'm a good, good mom. And so I fall into that camp easily. Like I'll dive a little bit more into motherhood when things feel chaotic with like work stuff. And I'm trying not to do that as much, but I don't know. I have no secrets. I have no like good advice on this. I'm still trying to
No,
figure it
that's
out.
like such good wisdom. I love that. Cause yeah, I was thinking about this last night. Well, I don't know how y'all do like home chores. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chores
Yeah.
is the word.
Yeah. Everybody participates.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like we need more integration. Like Riv loves helping me. Obviously, Poppy can't do it right now, but like I feel like it also came from how you were raised. So like for me, I'm like I just constantly see stuff and I'm just doing stuff. But the other day I was thinking like kind of like what you're saying. I read something about that, the weight, or there was like a podcast or something about the weight that mothers carry that's like just there always. Cause I was thinking that too, because sometimes I'll get back and literally like from every corner, like, can you order more toilet paper? Can you do this?
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
oh my gosh. And I'm like not super easily overwhelmed, but recently I have been. So I'm like really looking at that, like, what is taking so much energy from me? Like, why am I feeling overwhelmed? Cause like
Yeah.
I have like a big capacity and I'm like, I think that really is it. Like trying to balance even just like rest in the middle of all getting everything done. And I'm like, yeah, Jason, that's like a sticking point. I would say he would like say it so I can say it. But yeah, just like come help me with the laundry. Let's
Yeah.
go. Or
Yes.
like
Yes. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
little things like that. I'm like, that is why is that like the most attractive thing when a guy
Oh, the
I'm like,
sexiest. Like when
whoa.
JP does a little meal planning and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna cook some chicken tenders on Sunday so the kids have it for lunch on Monday. And I'm like, wait a second, what? No, it's amazing. And I think the good thing is like, look, we're not there yet, but it gives me hope again, going back to like, it gives me hope that like we're at least aware and like we have partners that like we can have these conversations with and say, hey, I'm struggling to mentally hand this off. I know you may not do it as perfectly as I do, but we're going to get there. And I have faith that like your intention is that like you want to help and you want to try. And I think that that's the best we can do right now. And this is right now. I'm always like, this is the work. This is the actual work, not necessarily the blogging or the podcasting or anything. The work is like trying to figure out how to make this work as a woman and as just like in this life of that has so much, I don't want to say like suffering, but like it is difficult, this humaning thing. And so the work is like trying to figure it out and not lose my cool doing it and like have a little ease and laughter and levity in some of it.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to take that. I love that like phrasing too of just like, I mentally need you to take on some of these things. That's so good. And I feel like it's empowering for the other person, even though, even if, even if it's like, I do not want to do that, but it's like actually when it starts happening and there's that rhythm, I feel like it's so like, this is amazing for both people.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Okay, I feel like I could keep talking to you for hours, but I want to be mindful of your time. I'm like, oh my God, it's been over an hour. And so this is going so long. First of all, thank you for doing this. I adore you. And you've shared so much good wisdom, but tell people like where they can find you. And I know you have some new stuff coming up and launching soon. You feel free to share or not share, depending on like how ready you are to share. But tell us where we can find you. We're online, all the places.
Okay, so at the Lauren Kennedy on Instagram, I'm like most active on, and then Scruggs Kennedy.com is my blog, and I'm getting back to that, like as
Oh,
we're
I
talking.
love that.
Yeah, I'm getting back in that like rhythm. And then I have like a charity where we give arms and legs to women.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yes, we just it like brings me so much joy because it was like that feeling of like I had that support when I was in it, and so I want to like support because it's such a vulnerable time.
Yeah, yeah.
You're getting that, and then so we have products called Stranded, but we're actually renovating that whole brand to something totally
Okay,
exciting. It's like
great.
I feel like it's just how I don't know when you're an entrepreneur, just things are always shifting. So we're all like super excited about it.
Amazing.
You updated, yeah.
Okay, great, great. Well, we will link everything in the show notes and people will find you there. And Lauren, just thank you for doing this. You are such an inspiration to so many people. And thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably about just your story. It's really inspiring. I adore you. So thank you.